Everyone loves a success story, but rather than hearing about what someone's done, I'm more interested in knowing what they're thinking. That's why I'm asking titans, magnates, and CEOs to tell me about the 5 most important decisions they've made in their careers. Join me as I get into the heads of the country's most successful people.
Arnel, thank you so much for hosting us here, which is in a place that is the ground zero of BGC. Right? Tell us how this building came about.
Well, thank you and welcome to BCDA. This, as you know, this place used to be an army camp. So this is the Fort Bonifacio is the headquarters of the Philippine Army. In fact, even before the Philippine Army, it was the U.S. Army who used this as a Fort William McKinley. In 1992, BCDA was created to raise funds in the privatization of the army camps in order to rehabilitate those that had been, the areas that had been destroyed by the Mount Pinatubo eruption and also the Baguio earthquake.
Which happened back to back, right? In
Yes,
the early
yes.
90s,
Actually, BCDA was created out of, I would say, four adversities. The first is the isolation of the Philippine economy from the global investment community when the coup attempts happened from 1987 to 1989. And then in 1990, after the bloody coup d'etat in December of 1989, in 1990 we had the Baguio earthquake. Yes. And to make it even worse, in 1991, a year after the earthquake, you had the most destructive volcanic eruption in our history in the last century, which is the Mount Pinatubo eruption.
Which covered all these American facilities in
Clark,
dust,
Subic, and all the infrastructure in Central Luzon that had been destroyed. And
Ashfall, yes. Arnel, you've come a long way. You're a successful CEO and president, near the apex of your young career. Lots more to go. And all these chapters of success seem to come naturally for you. But that wasn't that easy, right? You have a story that you want to tell us. Tell us about how you started, what made a difference for you, and how did you decide and go about escaping from poverty?
Thank you for that question. Well, I'm really proud of, but at the same time, I have to give thanks to God for blessing me with such opportunities. Because, I call it as achieving dreams that you have never been even able to dream of when you were younger. Because when I was young, I was born in Padre Garcia. It's a small town in Batangas, which is the center of the livestock market. That's where I learned how to ride horses, not in a polo club. We lived in a farm. My family was landless, so we tend to farm somebody else's land.
And you were a family of 8 children, I understand.
Yes, yes. We were 8. There's no RH bill yet at that time. So we were living in a typical, bahay kubo. And it was hard. This is something probably that also drives me on what I'm doing now. It motivates me every day that, people should not be, particularly Filipinos, should not be living in the way that we've lived when we were young. It's so dehumanizing to experience hunger, when you seem to be helpless and that no matter how hard you try, food will always be a challenge.
And that is the proverbial poverty trap that only a few get out of, right?
In fact, in my village, I was the first, in my family, I was the first college graduate. We were 8, I'm the third. But my 2 older brothers, although they were very intelligent people, were not able to go to college because the conventional wisdom in a poor community is that the highest educational achievement that one can get is high school. I think it's true, it's still true among in the remote areas and the rural areas and the poor areas. So when you are living in a poor community, you tend to think that the world is just like that.
That's as far as you go.
That's as far as you go. You don't know that there's far better opportunity out there. Because one, if you don't get educated, your mind is also imprisoned because you don't know the opportunities out there. So your capacity to dream is even smaller because you are not aware of the possibility. So I guess one of the turning point in my life is really education. Education is a great equalizer, and then this is one story that quite strikes me even now is that, I learned to read very well, not in the school, not in the library, because the libraries in public schools are always closed.
Yes, after 3 p.m. and the closets nakakadena. It's basically they're chained, exactly.
Yes. And then, whenever I would ask my teacher to borrow books, she would tell me, you can't do that because you may destroy the books. So the books are forever new.
Yes, they're sacred and for accreditation, but not necessarily for
Correct,
learning.
correct.
Exactly.
So they only have the library for, because the district supervisor may come in and then.
Yes.
And then, but I really learned to read. It's in the marketplace, in the public market, in the ubiquitous corner where you'll find a store with rental comics that's hanging on a string.
Exactly.
And they rent it for like, I think 10 centavos. And then also for better quality of reading materials, I was able to read them in the dried food section of the public market, because that's where you could find the old copies of Time magazine.
Yes.
At the time, Time Life magazine, Reader's Digest, National Geographic. So my quality of reading materials improved as I go sort through those materials in the dried food section. But what's important in being able to read is that I get to see a world beyond what I see. Even if that's not physically, I haven't physically seen it or been there, my mind began to wander beyond the squalor that I had been experiencing.
So the transformative and transportation of reading.
Yes.
Got you.
So I think poverty, I believe, is 50% in the mind. If poor people would have the capacity to dream bigger and to hope more, then they'll act bolder and more courageously. So they'll see that, okay, I'm going to get out of this squalor. I'll prove to the world that I'm capable of doing something much, much better.
Beyond the resources that you had, you still had that hunger. Tell us about what was driving you to get out of poverty.
It's like when you suffered hunger and deprivation at the same time, it motivates you that you're going to do that for other people. When we were young, we were really very, very poor. We could not eat very well. 3 meals in a day is a challenge already. We have to share 1 egg for 8 children. The way my mother would do it is that she would scramble the egg, and then once the frying pan is already hot, and once she puts the egg on the frying pan, she would tilt the pan so that the entire surface of the pan would be covered by the egg.
Spread around for as many people
for
as possible.
Many people. So you make that illusion of bigness, the size, and then she would. So although it's very, very thin, and she would distribute that among the 8 children. And one thing also that strikes me, and I love my mother for this, and my parents in particular, I never had any recollection of my mother joining us on a table, and I realized that only when I was already married, and my wife complained to me why I was not joining the family.
Something you took for granted. And why was that with your mother?
Well, it's because I realized, looking back, that because we were 8 and food was scarce, my mother would ensure that all children would be fed first before she would even eat. There was a time even that I asked my mother that I will be stopping going to school so that I could help in the family. But my mother, with tears in her eyes, told me, you have to study because you are my best bet. So that really remained me. Probably I was an angry young man, complaining internally within me, in my heart, why life could be so unjust. But why people who are honorable and who work so hard would not have a chance to even eat a proper meal and even go to school whenever we want to. So, but then again, instead of languishing from my complaints and the problems of the world, I decided I want to make a difference. So when my mother told me that they cannot send me to school, I told them I'm going to send myself to school. So I went to Manila with only 100 pesos in my pocket, actually, and a lot of courage and faith. The life comes full circle. I lived, my first place of residence here in Manila was in the slum areas here in Fort
Right
Bonifacio.
outside the perimeter.
Yes, right outside when this building is not yet constructed, I could still see South Sembo and Sembo. And I lived in one of my relatives here And then eventually I lived in a shanty along the creek of Sembo. And then I worked in Jollibee. You know that Jollibee Guadalupe along EDSA. I was one of the first employees of Jollibee.
I remember you posting that picture on Facebook.
Yes. So I had to thank him that because of my job in Jollibee, I was able to survive the city and eventually adopt and then find other ways. So I was able to graduate from college.
How did that lead you to your choices of education? Because you could have gone to business, as many people would, especially to escape poverty, but you chose something as noble and as lengthy preparation as the law. Tell us about that.
Well, you know, I think law involves everything because it creates order to the society. And of course, well, I have to admit, you know, the prestige associated with it. Everyone wanted to go to UP Law, where currently now I'm a faculty there, so I'm teaching there. And I realized I could help more and I could have more opportunities if I go to law. So I help people and give them free legal advice whenever I would want to, whenever I can. And then also it created a lot of opportunities for me. It opened up the world for me. And, you know, I realized life is a series of dreams. Then you just bloom where you are planted. I don't live in regret. I just survive whenever I'm put in and then excel as much as possible.
So Arnel, you've come full circle on many fronts, but this one is actually close to home for me and my channel. Tell us about your classmate at Harvard.
Oh, well, yes. Well, Emma Bloomberg was my classmate, so at one point she was my seatmate, actually.
Well, that's,
well, she's yeah.
that's astounding. Arnel, it's funny, we're here at actually the apex of BGC.
Yeah.
People forget that this once was an army installation named after a national hero. Tell us, what was the vision for this place? You are the oldest standing CEO of BCDA and yet the youngest. What was your vision for this place?
Well, this should be the model of urban development in the Philippines. And well, that's the way we honor also our heroes. You know, in the globalist world, I think the business center should also be we should also see the heritage of the place, because when we started this in 1995, most of the generation now have no recollection that this used to be an army camp, and so much heroism has actually happened here.
Absolutely.
And in fact, we are preserving some of the heritage places here. The war tunnels underneath the city is being preserved and it's going to be open.
And that is yet to be exposed to the public, right?
Yes, so that with the development and the progress that we have, we look back and pay tribute and honor to those who had sacrificed for all of us as Filipinos too.
Now, one thing in the master planning is the governance aspect of it. The idea of not getting tempted to fill every space with concrete.
Yes.
Tell us, how does it come about in terms of avoiding that temptation to build everything according to just all density?
Yes, we realized that for the city to be vibrant and to be commercially competitive as well, developers must realize that open spaces creates value. So the parks are an important aspect of the city because they create value for the developments around it. If we build so much, then you'll have congested roads,
Sure.
utilities, and the quality of life would really diminish. So the better quality of life would involve preserving open spaces and the commons.
Now, you seem to be in learning mode all the time and applying the lessons you've learned from your first city to the next.
Yes.
What is in store for us with Clark Green City?
Oh well, for Clark Green City was much even better because we have so much land. So all roads would have bike lanes and wider pedestrian sidewalks. As you may observe in Manila, well, here in BGC, we have wider sidewalks. But in Metro Manila, you'll see very narrow sidewalks and pedestrian walk on the road.
Afterthought urban planning.
Yes, so now in Clark Green City, we have wider sidewalks, bike lanes, and the mass transport system, BRT system as well, and railways.
It's wonderful. We talk about the governance aspect of this, but we're looking at governance in your career. You know, a bright young lawyer could have actually gone into the investment banking business, made a buck at the corporate law sector, and yet you chose public service. Tell us how that came about. How did you nurture that patience to get you to where you are today beyond the quick buck?
Well, as I said, I came from a poor family. So I never get the chance to really live richly and ostentatiously. So every day is a blessing to me. What's important at the time and in my youth was that I realized life is all about meaning. If I'm going to live my life, would it be about money? Definitely money is important. But at the end of the day, it's your humanity that's important. So my job is really to shape physical spaces so that the dignity of human life would be promoted. So that's the way we have to do it as a people. So at the end of the day, you can have so much money, but as Bill Gates had said, at a certain point, money loses its utility.
Absolutely.
So to me, I think what's important is what's the meaning of my life at the end of the day.
Well, it's a recurring thing about you, about this rediscovery and the retooling. Now, you weren't satisfied with a law degree from the top university in the Philippines. You actually went to the top university in the United States and arguably the world.
Yes.
Tell us why you chose that school, how it chose you, and how it influenced you.
Well, I realized there's no limit to dreams. If you're going to dream, you might as well dream the biggest.
Jack, go big or go home.
Correct, correct. Anyway, dreams are free. So, but then again, I realized also that they are achievable as long as you work hard and you have faith that you could do it. Then it can happen, and it happened to me.
Now, you came in as a scholar, and you had a lot of mentors in there. I know you're grateful for it, but what exactly is in your toolkit now that you learned? What is it in your mindset that you learned from going to graduate school?
Well, graduate school somehow tempts you also to be risk averse. So sometimes we get, for example, I came from Harvard, so I get to have a bloated sense of my own self. And that's a danger.
Maybe that's the fault of your peers, that you're in an environment of achievers, right? So
yeah, but at the end of the day, I realized that I must maintain my feet on the ground because that's where most of the learnings are. And then be able to take risks as well. And in doing that, it creates a lot of opportunities. So, and then we succeed in the risks that we're taking. What's important in human life is the ability to be free. So if I get to choose whatever I want to, I get to choose the life I'm going to live, I'll be very happy.
Well, I can imagine if somebody once gone to graduate school, well, the other Cambridge in the UK.
Yes, well, that's the better one. The
older one is that you always have these two dynamics, two ends trying to compete with each other. The sense of achievement and the sense of coming back home and giving back. How did you reconcile that when you came back home?
Well, those are pretty, those two are actually very important and they balance the life that I have. When Paul Volcker,
the former Treasury Secretary.
Yes, I almost had a chance to stay in the U.S. and shape my career there because I had a blessing of being considered by Paul Volcker for a job to work for him in the World Bank.
The man who saved the U.S. economy.
Yes, now he's the senior economic advisor of President Obama.
Yes.
But you know, I had to decline because I realized that I'm more needed here in the Philippines. And it proved to be a very good decision because if I had stayed there, then I would have been one of the bureaucrats in a very big organization such as the World Bank, other than being a CEO, building cities and creating much more impact on people's lives. So I think, and I love my country. I think I have no other country than the Philippines.
So there was patriotism and yet you saw the value and upside to it.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, listen, this is the time that we're going to let off steam now. So why don't we go in a box? Come on.
Thank you.
All right. Jab straight. Okay, jab straight hook.
Okay.
Yeah, jab straight hook. Okay. So we're here at the AFP Boxing Gym, which is reserved especially for commissioned officers, non-commissioned officers.
By the way, we're in the Army gym, but I'm a commander of the Navy. So, but at the same time, I'm part of the Army Governance Board.
Well-
So, this is where I sweat out.
Well, great. This is where the few, the proud stand tall. And
The
thank you
brave,
for,
yeah.
again, thanks for having us over here. Now, the studio, my producers aren't allowing me to box with you, so I'm going to have to do the mitts instead. Otherwise, with a shiner, I will never be allowed to enter the studio again. So if you don't mind this modified workout, we'll go at it, okay?
Okay,
All right,
okay.
give me a jab. Jab straight. Okay, jab straight hook.
Okay.
Yeah, jab straight. Jab straight. Jab straight hook. Okay, this is just a warm up to a really important question.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more symbolic about this place than the question I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
Your job isn't the easiest in the world. You know, it's easy to say you've got your dream job, everything is cushy, you've got the trappings of the public and the private sectors all in this position. But you made a lot of enemies here in this job, and it wasn't easy. Tell us how you went about this and why you stand tall.
Well, I think going into the job, I realized that our President Aquino, has won the presidency in a platform of good governance. And that would mean stepping onto a lot of big toes around who'd been benefiting from a corrupt system before. And it's very important we keep our integrity strong and in the midst of a lot of temptations, because I'm managing a $10 billion company. And there are a lot of temptations to enrich ourselves.
But my understanding is a $10 billion company, but you were billions in arrears when you stepped into the position.
Yes, actually, when I came in, there are about 6 billion bad accounts that I had to clean up. Well, eventually, I was able to collect from all of those who owe us, except, for example, the ongoing litigation with Bob Sobrepeña in John Hay.
But you virtually cleaned it up so the accounts receivable
Yes,
and debts have been lowered, right?
Yes, from 6 billion to only 457 million now. So that's about almost 5.6 billion worth of collections that we had. My task as a CEO is to be a good steward of the company, and we've been doing very well.
Now you cleaned up, wasn't easy, and yet you were in the middle of transforming these assets into value-added hubs.
Yes.
How much of that was trying to first cut clean, and how much of it was getting into the new phase? Or did you have to balance both?
Well, I adopt a principle, which is an 80-20 principle.
The Pareto principle.
Yes, so 20% is cleaning up, 80% is moving forward, because you can't have 100% just looking at the past.
And watching the paint dry,
Yes.
and money is being lost with opportunity
Correct,
costs. Yeah?
correct. So looking forward, when you're a CEO, you must look ahead and shape the future. Because if you are not able to influence the future, then your company is at great risk. So the way I look at it is, most of the things that I'm dealing with the past dues and the bad receivables and bad accounts is only 20% of my 80% of moving forward, like Clark Green City, developing more value in Bonifacio Global City, looking at the efficiency of our subsidiaries, and shaping our people, our own people, organizationally. So you must have a team that is capable and honest enough to do the job.
You know, the worry about an investing public is some of the government assets in their own hands can be led to a fire sale. And yet what you've done is build these assets up, turn them around for a premium, and that's ongoing, especially with Clark Green City.
Yes, yes. Well, it's important that a public servant should adopt a mentality of a steward, knowing that we are in a position, not in the trappings of power, but rather an opportunity to serve a greater number of people. So if you have that mindset, you wouldn't mind losing your job the next day. So if President Aquino tells me, Arnel, you've done enough, then thank you for your service, I'd be very, very glad and tell the President, thank you, Mr. President, it's been an honor to serve you and to serve the Philippine people. But if we happen to feel entitled to the position, and then we use that position for our personal interest, then the company is in big, big trouble.
You know, which brings me to my next point, because we've touched on being a technocrat and a public servant, but the next phase of anybody who wants to leave a legacy is the role of statesman. How do you get there, given the fact that President Aquino, the one who appointed you, is going to leave within 12 months, and you have a mandate that I know you haven't fully served yet?
Well, you know, I've trained by people under me, and my principle is that I actually recruit people who are better than I am. So it makes my job very easy. At the same time, it creates continuity in the organization. So it's a very professional organization. I send them abroad, expose them to the best practices, expose them to the people that I've met globally, particularly in my network. So at the end of the day, when I leave, I'm comfortable and confident that they will continue to make the BCDA much, much bigger.
Now, you know, you're a lawyer and an administrator, but some engineers will say the best thing to do about a corporation is to actually have an operating system so that continuity happens. How much of the operating systems are in place, and how much have you built it to the point that it cannot be eroded in the next administration or next generation?
Oh, we implemented reforms in the organization. We actually had the ISO certification, so that would institutionalize quality in the organization. Our mindset is that we are not simply a government. We should be better than even the private sector. We should be the best in the business, and regardless of who the comparison is. So we are ISO certified. We adopt the 5S system. We also have an integrity measure. You may laugh about it, but we have created an honesty store in the office, because integrity is something that is difficult to measure. And the only way I could really measure it is that there's something missing in the store. So if people cannot be trusted with, you know, a single soft drink or biscuit, then that means you have an integrity problem in the organization.
Well, that's a great lagging organization, because the only places I've seen it work are in Batanes and Sagada, but in a big city,
Yes.
in a government corporation,
Yes.
that must be a good lesson for everybody else to learn.
Yes, actually, but now you create a culture that people will act and do the right thing even when no one is looking. If there's something missing in the store, then your bonus would be at risk.
Fascinating.
One of the biggest mistake that a CEO or a leader could commit is to afraid to lose or to fail. Because once you are afraid, you are making decisions out of fear, then most probably 99% of that decision is wrong. So in our case, as a CEO, when I make a decision, I make it because it's the right thing to do, even if I lose my job.
Okay.
I don't mind, because anyway, I could find any other job. I came from the slums, I came from nothing.
You've got nothing to lose.
I could always survive.
Now, if it wasn't for these ropes, I think we'd be falling flat. At least I would be flat on the cement right now. But we have room for one last question. I can't avoid talking about how much your faith has meant to you as an anchor, whether it be looking at your family, forming one, growing one, or making those tough decisions at work and your career. Tell us, how big is it for you?
It is me, actually. Central to my own person is my faith. I don't think I could move forward in life without my faith, because, you know, coming from nothing, you have to believe in something bigger than yourself. And that kind of faith gave me hope. And when it gave me hope, I was able to dream bigger. Yes.
What is your belief for the future of the Philippines, given that you're playing a role right now that may catapult it or may take it down, depending on how you do in the next few months?
Yes. Well, that's the reason why we founded Kaya Natin movement. It's not simply a political movement. It is a movement that allows Filipinos to dream bigger, because our greatest enemy actually is our own sense of helplessness. So once people begin to believe that they cannot do anything, then that's the failure already. But if we believe in something that, okay, this is a new Philippines, these are the new brand of Filipinos, we look forward, we work so hard, we excel in our fields, we nourish our mind, and then we reach out to each other in a positive way, then we could really build a strong country. Corruption and reforms has to be done by everyone, not only the government, but also businesses. But if you create a level playing field, particularly in us, in government, setting the example, then each individual Filipino, even the poorest of the poor, would begin to dream, to hope, and then to work so hard.
You know, Arnel, it's been a personal journey, and I thank you for sharing it with me in this interview, even before that, as friends. We haven't always agreed on the same thing, but we've agreed to disagree. And one thing I can and I can't disagree with you on is the testament of your experience in matching your ambition and your vision for yourself and your country. Mm-hmm. So I wish you all the best in your next steps, and thanks again for your time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. It's been an honor.
Appreciate it. And thanks for not giving me a shiner.
Me too.
All right. just ended another round of Thought Leaders, the show that explores the minds and the moves of the country's most successful people. I'm Quintin Pastran. Join us again next week.